There's been a problem in society that's been gliding under the radar since at least the 1960s, and that problem is the prevalence of women falsely accusing men of sexual assault with no evidence. The truth is that in this society we currently live in, a man's suffering is treated far differently in comparison to a woman's. When a man suffers, it's his fault. When a woman suffers, it's a man's fault. And this bias and double standard is something many women have used in the past to destroy men. For example, in 1979, a man named Gary Dotson was convicted of rape and aggravated kidnapping based on the testimony of a woman named Kathleen Crowell. He was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison. However, in 1985, Kathleen recanted her testimony and admitted that she made the entire story up. The encounter was consensual. She lied about it because she feared it would lead to a pregnancy and she didn't want to feel embarrassed. Her lies led to a man spending nearly 10 years in prison, and she did it to look better in the eyes of everyone after a hookup. Dotson was released in 1987, but his life was ruined after that. His conviction was never officially overturned, and he had endless legal, personal, and financial challenges. Do you know what happened to Kathleen? Absolutely nothing. No legal charges were filed against her. No punishment of any kind. She was able to falsely accuse a man, ruin his life, and completely get away with it. And people still have the audacity to say we live in a society that oppresses women. But before we go any further, let me share the comment of the day. Shout out to Richard Maddox, who said, "Been MGTOW since 2011 and not regretted a single moment of it. Living alone is so peaceful. No stress, no hassle, and spending my cash on me has allowed me to downsize my life and now live happily with a zero-stress job rather than needing to constantly do overtime to feed a woman's household stuff habit. Living a stress-free life is the life to be living. I'm happy for you, bro." So, don't forget to reach out to us by email to claim your $5. As usual, guys, I'll pick one comment from each video. It may be the funniest, the most liked, or one that touched me, so don't forget to leave a comment and you may be our next winner. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons too, as it helps us out a lot. Now, back to the video.
Embrace your masculinity.
This was one of the problems people predicted with the Me Too movement. It was necessary to throw a few predatory men into prison, and this is what it did. But the problem is, the overwhelming majority of men are not sex offenders. The problem with the Me Too movement is that it opened the door to more of these kinds of false accusations. This was already a huge firestorm, and the Me Too movement poured gasoline on it. It made it much easier for a woman to falsely accuse a man of sexual assault, either because she wanted revenge on him for some relationship issues, or like the example I spoke about a moment ago, she wanted to seem less promiscuous. And in this society, victimhood is a status symbol. Women are seen as the ultimate victims. The law is on their side, and if they want to accuse a man they don't like of sexual assault, she can ruin his life with no proof. Stories have since come out after Me Too showing that upwards of 60% of men are afraid to mentor women at work, fearing what will happen if they meet behind closed doors without a third party present. According to research from Pew, a majority of people, both male and female, said that the movement has made it harder for men to know how to interact with women in the workplace. Women falsely accusing men of sexual harassment or rape causes an unbelievable amount of suffering for a man. And this isn't something you'll hear about much in the media. If a man is accused of sexual assault, his reputation is destroyed. This is true even if the man is accused but eventually dropped of all charges. As soon as he's accused, it becomes a public circus. This is even worse if the media gets involved. The man often finds himself in the court of public opinion, no matter how the case turns out. The public humiliation and shame can cripple a man professionally and emotionally. He might find himself being passed up for promotions or even fired completely. Suddenly, he notices colleagues and employers distancing themselves from him for fear of public backlash. Suddenly, his career falls off the rails and he's struggling to make money, all because of a single accusation. An accusation can even become a social problem for a man. His wife or girlfriend might leave him. His friends and family members might cut him out of their lives. Suddenly, his social support vanishes and he's on his own. My dad always told me that no matter how successful you are, you're only 3 bad steps away from being on the streets. A sexual assault accusation made from a woman during a consensual encounter can be the first step in a spiral that destroys a man's life. And this isn't even scratching the surface of the psychological issues he can experience. Men's mental health doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as it deserves. Can you imagine being accused of being a rapist? Can you imagine what that would do to your life? Can you imagine the shock and the disbelief? The long-term stress as you deal with the shame, humiliation, and embarrassment. Not to mention the social isolation that comes when your friends and family stop returning your phone calls and replying to your messages. Nobody wants to be associated with a sex offender. It doesn't matter if you're innocent. The fact that you've been accused is enough to ruin your life. If you thought that divorce courts were bad, imagine having to go through a brutal and lengthy legal battle to prove your innocence when accused of sexual assault. When it comes to men, you are guilty until proven innocent. Women are seen as innocent immediately. Having to stand in court and plead your case to a jury that already thinks you're guilty is soul-crushing. You try to live a normal life while you're not sure if you're going to prison or not. Most of your income is being wasted on legal fees. And if you're already financially strained, this could bankrupt you completely. Depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder are just some of the mental health issues that men have to deal with for the rest of their life because a woman decided to play a game with his life in court. And you can kiss any future employment opportunities and career progression goodbye. How would it look for the company to promote an accused sex offender? Most men accused of sexual assault of any kind would be lucky to keep a job at McDonald's, let alone a high-paying corporate job. Many of the men accused of sexual assault without evidence are students. If you're a male student and you've been accused of sexual assault, you will likely be expelled from whatever college you're attending. It'll go down on your permanent record and future schools will see it. Do you think they will allow you in? Absolutely not. For no fault of your own, your education prospects in the future are gone. And we haven't even spoken about what happens if you lose the case and go to jail. Wrongly convicted of a crime you didn't commit by a woman you probably barely know, and she's accusing you to save her reputation. She doesn't care in the slightest how it'll affect you. She doesn't care about the damage it causes to you and your family. She doesn't care that financially you are ruined. As long as she can save her reputation and avoid looking like a hoe, she'll throw an innocent man under the bus and go to bed without losing a minute of sleep about it. And that's because in this society, where toxic feminism is the main ideology, men have been oppressors for tens of thousands of years. As far as modern women are concerned, it's time for revenge. As any man knows, women can be absolutely vicious when it comes to hurting the men in their lives. When they want to cause damage, they know exactly where to hit a man, his wallet, and his reputation. And reputation destruction is something that women have perfected. Now, if you put a righteous, religious ideology behind it, you now have a generation of women who feel morally obligated to ruin men's lives in any way they can. And in this society, accusing a man of sexual assault is a great way to bring him down quickly. He'll lose his family, his job, his home, his money, and even his life. Many men sadly make the ultimate choice in the wake of a sexual assault accusation.
The Logan Police Department investigating a possible false sexual assault accusation that led to a man's death.
ABC4's Nicole Newman talked to the Logan Police Chief today and has the story.
Police say it's a crime he didn't commit and they have surveillance video to prove it. But sadly, it wouldn't be enough to save the life of 62-year-old Michael Fife. Fife died on April 27, 4 days after suffering severe head trauma from being tackled to the ground.
This was a single, forceful motion that appeared to have knocked Mr. Fife off his feet.
Logan City Police Chief Gary Jensen says the aggressor was a 17-year-old who was led to believe his 16-year-old sister had been sexually assaulted by Fife. The sister said it happened while on a Cache Valley Transit District bus, but Chief Jensen says the surveillance footage they obtained doesn't support her claim.
It just simply doesn't appear to, according to what we were told, and now the video that we watch, it doesn't seem to be that the two stories come together.
Jensen says the assault happened while Fife was getting off the bus near 300 South 100 West. After the attacker ran away, eyewitnesses called for help. This was all around 3 o'clock on April 23rd, but police say the accuser didn't call to report the alleged assault to police until 6:15 p.m. that day. As far as charges,
we're looking at this case trying to understand whether the elements and the knowledge of the perpetrator versus what actions that person took, whether they meet the elements of certain crimes.
According to a GoFundMe raising money for his funeral expenses, Fife leaves behind one son. In Logan City, Nicole Newman, ABC4 News.
Now, ABC4 did reach out to the Cache Valley Transit District. We wanted to try to see a copy of that surveillance video. Our request was denied for that. We were told it could interfere with the investigation. We also reached out to Michael Fife's family. We're still waiting to hear back from them.
For obvious reasons, the kinds of prison sentences handed out to perpetrators of sexual assault are extreme. As a society, we need this. But what happens when the woman presents no evidence? You could end up getting 25 to 50 years or even life imprisonment depending on which state you're in. You could end up losing your entire life. A man's freedom is one of the most important things to him, and because of a single accusation, he can lose it completely. And who knows what'll happen to him in prison? Bad things happen in there, and none of it was his fault. Bad things sometimes happen to good people. A man could be living a healthy and virtuous existence, doing the best he can to get by. He could be treating people with respect and dignity. He could even be a pillar of the community, never having harmed a hair on another person's head. And a woman decides to ruin his life, and suddenly he's a prisoner who has no idea if he'll ever get out or not. There's no shortage of examples of men spending decades behind bars only to be exonerated later. For example, a man named Anthony Broadwater endured 16 years in prison and an additional 24 years under the shadow of a false rape accusation. He was accused in 1981 for the rape of Alice Sebold. It took nearly 40 years for the conviction to be overturned, when his accuser changed her story and identified a completely different person. Do you see the kinds of games some women play in the courtroom? His accuser even wrote a book about it to cash in on the rape even more. This ruined Anthony Broadwater's life. Now his case is unusual because he was recently awarded $5.5 million in reparations. But the truth is, the vast majority of falsely accused men don't see a shred of that kind of money. And even if they do get awarded a big cash settlement, no amount of money is worth the damage. Sometimes he gets nothing at all, just a half-assed apology from the judge before he says you're free to leave. Luckily, there does seem to be some light at the end of the tunnel. The suffering men endure in the wake of a false sexual assault accusation is becoming increasingly well known. We're hearing about more and more punishments being handed down to women who falsely accused a man of sexual assault without evidence or proof. One recent example is the case of Eleanor Williams in the UK. Williams, from Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria, was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for making false claims of being victimized by a grooming gang.
Welcome back. My next guest has spent the last 2 years in a living nightmare after being falsely accused of rape by a woman he barely knew. Jordan Trengrove was just 18 when he met Eleanor Williams on a night out in Cumbria in 2019. What happened next landed him in prison for 10 weeks, left him branded a rapist, destroyed his mental health. Eleanor Williams has since been unmasked as an evil fantasist and a serial liar. And today she was jailed for 8.5 years. Before we speak to Jordan, let's just hear what he had to say last time he was on the show back in January.
I took an overdose in front of my own mum. It was that bad. I didn't ever put other people's feelings first, if you get what I mean, because my life was just too messed up with all this stuff.
This woman attacked herself with a hammer, claimed she'd been sold as a slave, and said she'd been forced to attend sex parties. She was just sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for it. Her name is Eleanor Williams, and she falsely claimed that she had been abused by a grooming gang as well as by other innocent men. Her injuries were extensive in the photos, but turns out she'd actually used a hammer to inflict them on herself. The post led to demonstrations in her hometown, which even included a visit from the English Defence League founder Tommy Robinson. Reports of hate crime in Barrow, where she lived, tripled. She'd already been charged with perverting the course of justice before she made the Facebook posts. She'd previously made false claims. One of those men had only asked her for a light on the street. Another spent time in jail after her false claims, while she accused another of heading an international grooming gang and trafficking her and other girls across the country. She'd only met the man once. She even gave real names of the girls she said had also been victim of the grooming gang, all of which was fake. She also used different mobile phones and created fake accounts on Snapchat to give evidence to her lies. All three men said they tried to unalive themselves because of the accusations.
There is a risk that genuine victims will, as a result of this defendant's actions, feel deterred from reporting it.
It's destroyed me, not only me, it's destroyed my partner, it's destroyed my family, my little boy.
What do you feel it has done to you, Jordan? I mean, I think you're very brave for speaking out about it, but what you've been through has been hellish, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's destroyed me, not only me, it's destroyed my partner, it's destroyed my family, my little boy. It's destroyed us as a community. It's been awful.
The man tried to kill himself, and no matter what feminists like to say, women accusing men of sexual assault like this happens way more often than anyone thinks. In this society, it doesn't matter how terrible the actions of a woman are, there will always be people coming out to defend them because she's a woman.
She's clearly not well. I actually don't even think she should be going to prison. I think she should I think she should be sectioned. I think she's not well. And I actually don't think prison is a safe environment for her.
Well, I don't really care if it's a safe environment for her, frankly. And I don't think that being unwell is a justification. You wouldn't be saying that.
It's not a justification, but it might be an explanation.
If we had a male, if this guy had been convicted of what he'd been charged or accused of doing and arrested over, like you said, 22 years, you'd have called him a monster. You wouldn't have made some excuse about his mental health.
Yeah, I mean...
Right? Why are you making an excuse for her?
I'm not giving her an excuse.
You are. You're saying she shouldn't even be in prison.
I'm explaining. I don't think that she is well, and I don't think she's going to be rehabilitated in a prison. I actually think it's going to be really awful for her, and actually is an indictment of our justice system.
Actually, what's an indictment is that he would have gone down for 22 years. She's going to be out in the next 2 years, having served half of an 8.5 year sentence.
And do you think that she's going to be any better? She's not going to be any better for it. Prison is about rehabilitation. She is not going to...
You wouldn't be saying that if he had been found guilty and gone to prison for rape,
but she's clearly not a...
You wouldn't know, would you?
She's not a... She's not
but Ava, you wouldn't, would you?
No, I think that's a false equivalence.
It's not a false equivalence.
It is a false
He
equivalence.
literally just told you. He was told if these lies stuck and he was found guilty, 22 years in prison. You would have been quite happy with that. Right?
If she had gone through the justice system...
If he was convicted...
and the justice system had convicted him, yes, I would say
you would have been quite happy. You wouldn't have made all these excuses.
I wouldn't have been quite happy.
Richard, here's the dilemma for me.
Women like this are the reason why this happens in the first place. If the roles were reversed and it was a man on the chopping block, nobody would be asking about his mental health. Nobody would be there to defend him and ask if psychological help is what he needs. He would be thrown in jail and nobody would ask any questions about it. It's cases like these that help bring this issue to the public eye. But even though Eleanor Williams has been sentenced to 8.5 years in prison, it's still not safe out there for men. Society is asking why men are going their own way, and I ask, why would they stay? If it's possible to spend the rest of your life in prison based on an accusation with no evidence, why would men spend a single minute around women? You already know this, but there's only one solution as a man. Don't participate. Walk away. They can't accuse you of sexual harassment if you don't give them sexual validation in the first place. Go your own way as a man. Don't give modern women any ammunition. Your life will turn out much better for it. As always, I wish you tremendous success. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember that if you leave the best comment, you'll get $5. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, Hit the like and subscribe buttons, ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future uploads, drop a comment, and share it. See you in the next video. Till next time.